All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Option 10 podcast. We're glad you're here. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about E3 a little bit here, discussing some of the things coming up and things you might be looking forward to, games and such like that. We are also, for our main segment, going to be diving into the early or the measuring a game's value. We have the Steam Summer Sale coming up on the horizon here, so hopefully you're going to be taking a look at that and getting you involved in that. Just joining me today, I am Forenci. I have Shinybuckles here, as well as VanChovi and Essell. So thank you guys for joining. We're gonna jump right in. We're going right into it for E3. So EA conference today. We have a bunch of we have Microsoft coming up. We have I think Nintendo as well as the PC conference, which is pretty cool. I think this is like the third or fourth year I've done that, so I'm pretty excited for that. And I don't know if anyone have any. Essell, do you have anything exciting you're looking forward to for E3?
I am hoping E3 has some things that we can look forward to that will eventually end up happening. I think the thing with E3 the past few years has been a lot of exciting news, a lot of great trailers, and then a lot of but when does it happen in real life? So I am looking forward to things that are going to be that are more tangible. So if we see some actual footage of Sea of Thieves, that'd be fantastic. If we see, if there's a playable gameplay demo of Mario Odyssey, that's what I'm looking forward to, especially. EA today was a press conference.
Yeah, it was kind of what I expected with EA, I think, which is I feel like a lot of it's just marketing for them. So kind of, putting their stuff out there, their sports games and things like that. But just the 20 seconds, the only thing that I really cared about was the, I think it's, what is it called? Anthem, their new IP. So.
Yeah, from BioWare. Yeah, for me, the most telling part about this being an EA conference was it went from this very, it's a 20-second teaser type trailer for the new BioWare IP, Anthem. And then it went from that immediately to NBA Live 18. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, it's hard as a gamer. I used to really be into sports games, but I've kind of gone away from those. And so it's always hard to watch the EA conference because it's very mainstream. There's those big mainstream games. And then there was the, I forgot what it was called. Is that kind of from the people that made the Brothers Two Tales game, where they have this split screen co-op game, which actually sounded kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a way out, I believe, coming from them. And things can come out early next year. And going to be, it looks interesting. The concept of there being this sort of split screen only game. It's very Shawshank Redemption, I think, but in a way, I don't know. We'll have to see how it turns out. It's going to be very much we have to play it in person.
Exactly. Johnny, I don't know if you've been paying attention to E3 at all. Is there anything you're kind of looking forward to or excited about?
I've been paying a little bit to it. My biggest thing is the games that are possibly going to be on there. Deep Silver is thinking about doing the new Metro 2035, and I don't know if it's going to be announced or not. There's some buzz about talking about they're going to try to revamp it back up since it's been a few years since they've released any new titles for it. And then they also have Agents of Mayhem coming out, which is Saints Row kind of. So they're going to be trying to get that back up and going. And then there's 2K Games is talking about maybe reintroducing BioShock back in again. So hopefully those will be announced on there, because those are some games that I've been looking forward to be released, another game on top of them. But there's no for sure talk about them coming out right now.
Cool. Van, what about you? I know you're a little more apprehensive towards.
I literally know nothing about E3. I stopped following it when they stopped showing playable game clips, if that makes any sense. And when it just essentially became this theatrical trailer where they show you cutscene after cutscene of their game, and you don't see the actual gameplay. But then in some instances where they do have gameplay, it's not even workable. It doesn't even work. They'd be well, you're supposed to be able to do this jump, or you're supposed to be able to dig this treasure here, but darn glitches.
The thing that kills me about the theatrical demos, and I know this has been done to death by everybody at this point, but the new thing the past year or so that we're going to probably see a lot more of in this year is the fake team chat audio thing, where like this was huge with the Ghost Recon Wildlands gameplay demo last year, and they had 4 people doing this extremely fake audio of like people using like military jargon and like other just like things that just didn't like, it was not real conversation, and pitching this as like part of the game experience. And so the issue is you're getting this picture of like people being all tactical and like very, you know, high professional sort of gameplay, and if you're getting on with like randos in queue, you're not gonna get an experience like that playing Ghost Recon or a tactical game, you know. So it'll be funny, but I feel you, Ben.
Yeah, like on a side note of that, like most in-game chats anyway never function the way they advertise. It's like you get in there and like you say hi, and you're like, let's do, and like you don't hear anything else after hi, and it's just like, yep, well, let's just go to third-party chats. But everybody's trying to get the in-game stuff because your consoles, they all have pretty well functioning stuff, but PC, we kind of fall short with that.
Yep, the PC gaming show, speaking of that, should be, I think it's been improving. The first year of it was a little rough. I think there was a lot of just like rehashed announcements, a lot of AMD talking about AMD products, like a full hour, I think it was the first time, which is cool to see AMD products. AMD has exciting offerings this year, but it's kind of hard to go from like high impact, like trailer to like long AMD presentation during the PC gaming conference. So we'll see how it goes, but.
Yeah, because they're supposed to be doing some more touching on the Ryzen and DirectX 12 and how it's so much better with gaming. But then we have to see if AMD releases their drivers this year for games.
That would be great. That would be a great change of pace.
then I could go back to my AMD instead of having to go Intel right now.
Yeah, it's something Intel AMD is going to be interesting for the next year or so. Intel was like holding back specs until AMD announced this Threadripper, right? So like, it's just going to be a big toss-up. I don't know.
Yeah, I would love to see more, you know, the PC gaming show, which is, I think, what we're all about. Like, just seeing, like, indie developers, you know, game developers who you maybe normally wouldn't see, like, on the mainstream kind of, you know, floor at E3. Just, like, having them there, I think, would be something that would be really cool. So, I mean, hopefully that's something we'll see. I don't know. I mean, now it's hosted by Intel, so maybe they'll put a different spin or push towards that.
Goodbye, AMD. You get no time.
I don't know. I guess they've fallen from grace from the PC gaming world. But yeah. So is there anything else anyone's excited? I know I'm kind of interested in Nintendo a little bit. I don't have a Switch. I know Essell has a Switch, and I'm very tempted, especially after watching him like for Zelda games. But you know they have the new Mario Odyssey, which is kind of like the Mario in the city kind of feel to it, which is kind of interesting there. So I mean, there's some things I've got on my agenda. I know Scorpio is really big with Xbox, but I mean, other than that, I don't know. I'm just gonna probably capture the after action review, I guess, of E3. So anything else you guys are interested in, Van or Shiny or Essell?
No, I'm just gonna wait for Essell to play the games on the Switch, and I'll just watch him.
Hey, that works. Yeah, I mean, for me, Nintendo is going to be, because they've been like going pretty hard the past year in terms of like laying out new content. I'm excited to see what angle they take. The Pokemon Direct last week was a little bit weird, so I'm looking to see if they pivot off of that to something else or give more details about those games. And I really do want to see more of Odyssey. Everybody sort of focused on the New York part of that trailer. There were other areas in the game like shown very briefly. And I want to see what those look like. I want to see mechanics. I want to see more of the world stuff for that game. So I think that's going to be a very interesting part of this. And then Scorpio specs, but those are going to be whatever, I guess.
Sorry, go ahead.
You're fine, Van. You're fine.
Something that I was curious about, because I have been looking through like the games that are going to be released for the Switch, and they all a majority of them seem to be games that are already available, like Cave Story, for example. That's like already on Steam, and it's for half the price. It's like $9 on Steam, and it's like $34 on the Nintendo.
Cave Story's been released for like 4 or 5 platforms, I think, going back like to the mid 2000s. The game it came out in like 2006 or 7, I think.
Yeah, it's an older game.
Just like
and they did the same thing with what was it? Is it Skyrim? That's another one. So I didn't know why they're doing that instead of coming out with their own games. Because I remember when the 64 came out, it was just like game, and they were all new. But
I think that might be the era we're in now. Is like because the Switch to me felt like it was like almost like a a half console. Not that it wasn't like its own awesome thing. Like it was obviously an upgrade, but like I think we've gone in the kind of the Scorpio too. Like it kind of sounds like it's an upgraded Xbox One, and I think PlayStation had the PS4 or like Pro. So I guess we've just entered that like time now where there is no like generation anymore. It's more just new iterations or whatever kind of the new thing is. But it's I don't know. It's interesting, I guess.
Yeah, it should be something. I do think like Nintendo has been doing this a little bit lately whenever they get a chance to like actually get ports. They're like, well, we can do ports now. Like let's get Skyrim and whatever else. So I think they can, because they have the hardware to do actual ports now. I'm excited to see where that goes, but I'm also a little bit wary of this like port thing. Although to be fair, I am a proponent of Nintendo's HD remasters. At least they've been all very high quality and have improved mechanics of the games for Zelda at least, and that's been great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And so hopefully they'll give us some new games. I know Mario Odyssey will be. There's a rumors floating around that we might see Mother 3, which is like I guess Earthbound 3, which is like one of my all-time favorite games. So I'm hoping for that, but I don't know. It's interesting. So hopefully we'll get some good information, some good games and things like that out of this year's E3. But I don't know, unless you guys had anything else you wanted to add in, I think we can move right along here.
I do think after like 4 to 5 or so years of maybe it being here, I think from what I understand, Beyond Good and Evil 2 should actually be at E3 this year. I believe it was like officially announced this past spring. So maybe Ubisoft, maybe that'd be great.
Maybe, maybe
We'll see.
Yeah, it'll be good. So, well, hopefully we'll get some good information, some good games this year at E3. I think I know a lot of us are very cynical about E3 now, so it's kind of like hopefully we'll get some good game announcements. Maybe we'll get some good trailers, and we'll call it a day on E3 there. But
yeah, like I'm scared of the announcement on E3, and it still doesn't come out for another 2 years. That's the thing that's going to get me. Because they've done that a couple of times already. It's like, oh, we've got this coming up Q1 of 2019. You're like, what?
Great. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
We appreciate
you just ruined me. You've got this huge hype with this tech demo, and that's all it is. Nothing else. You don't even have the game programmed yet.
Definitely true. So I think we're gonna move on to our kind of a main segment today, guys. I think we hit E3 pretty well, but we're talking about today about games and their value. I know Shiny and I we've always kind of like had this kind of open discussion like about like especially Steam Summer Sale right around the corner. The idea of like I'm buying the game because it's on sale more than anything else versus I'm buying this because I want to have fun. And so we wanted to kind of devote some time talking about like how do you actually value a game? How do you like measure that value? Is it like hours played? Is it just fun? Is there some kind of like fun quotient or ratio or something that just you kind of push to? And so I don't know, Van, what do you think? How do you kind of value games? What is like the main thing for you when you're deciding to buy a game? How do you value it? What do you choose?
It's all random and a chaotic process. It starts with the little thumbnail. I'll be scrolling through Steam, and if I see a thumbnail that catches my eye, then I look into it, and I scroll through the little videos that are available on Steam, as well as some of the other pictures to see if I even like the way that the game looks. And if I like the way the game looks, then I'll like Google, be like, tell me more about this game. So that's how I decide what game to play, and it's a coin toss, really. Sometimes you really find a good one, and other times you're like, well, this was a lot of hype for very, very little.
I don't know, Essell, what is your kind of like your mindset when you're purchasing a game? Is it, is it just about, oh, like this will be like 20 hours of a game for $20? Like that's a good kind of number. Is this...
For me, I've never really been a part. I mean, I guess there was like a phase in my life when I was into the like hours crowd. I think this past like 3-4 years, I've been very much away from the I more like want my life, if I'm gonna like go, I try to play a lot of games and catch up with as many games as I can. And I'm into a lot of genres, so it makes it hard to like find time to finish a lot of games. So for me, it's like if I hear that The Witcher 4 is going to be 300 hours of content, I'm like, oh no, like when will I ever play this? It's exciting, but also like when will I play 300 hours of The Witcher 4? I love The Witcher 3, but I mean, I'm 65 hours in and barely a third through the game, and I'm like, okay, I guess we'll play it eventually. So for me, it's more like, can I get into a conversation about? Stuff like Undertale. When in the first month after those games release, there's wonderful conversations to be had about what the game does for the medium, new mechanics, new story ideas, that kind of thing, or just things that are really exciting to play with friends.
Yeah, what about you, Shiny? Is there? I know we get it a lot of times. Like me and you, sometimes we focus on like the hours. I don't know. Is that a factor? Like when you're buying games, is it just about like how many hours, or is there some other kind of factor when you buy a game?
Well, I separate it because I have multiplayer games, like where I'm going to be with at least 3 or 4 people, sometimes more. Than I have my single player. When I go with games, I'm going to be with people. Yeah, I factor in how many hours of enjoyment am I going to get from this. And one game I always like to go back to is Ark. It came out, we bought it the first few days it came out. It was terribly, awesomely great. Because you got into it, no matter what you had, nobody could run it over 20 frames per second. But because it's the new genre, nobody had anything like it. You put 100 hours in it without even thinking. You couldn't do anything, but you put that 100 hours in, and you were having the most fun in your life. And then now I'm 1,400 hours later, after just giving me my awesome build fix that I need to have from games, but they introduced tech tier, and then which ruined the whole thing for me. So it has a lot to do with the replayability, the new content updates, and just keeping you hooked on something. Then as they go on, they get better and smoother. But then there's always something like, because it's early access, we get a lot of early access stuff that they could ruin a game potentially before they even finish it. And then is where you get a single player game that's already out, made, and you're like, well, this game's $50. I'm going to play it all the way through. And I try to get like at least 3 playthroughs in a game that's single player. So I do it easy, the easiest mode, then I do the middle mode, and then I try to do it as hard as possible. And then if I do a 4th, I try to mod it out as insanely as possible to see what I can get out of it. So that's how I base like my game quality and time, and if it's worth buying on.
That's interesting. I'm kind of like I think I used to be more of like the hours played equals value kind of time. Like you said, Ark was a game that we paid like $20 for, and I think I put like 1,000 hours into that game, which is ridiculous. But at the end of the day, now that it's totally like dead to me, like was that worth it then? And Ark is kind of different because it is an early access game. There's tons of content updates, and the kind of direction of the game changed, but that can happen with a game sometimes. And so for me, it used to be like an hours thing. Like, I got to make sure I get like, if I'm paying, $60 for this game, like I want like a, Witcher 3 style, like I want tons of stuff to do. So I feel like I'm getting my money's worth. I don't know, maybe it's just because like I buy the games myself now. And so it's not like your parents when you were young buying the games for you. And it was like, who cares? Like, it's just a game. I'm just going to play it. And if I get 2 hours out of it, so be it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now it's like, well, I buy this game, so now I want to make sure, I'm getting my money's worth, and I'm actually going to play it. It's hard, and Humble has changed things, because sometimes you get in those, like, free games that are kind of like add-on games. It's changed, for me at least. It used to be like an hours thing, now it's kind of like a holistic, like, overall that I had fun. I played Cluster Truck recently, and, like, that's like a 5-hour game, maybe. But I had so much fun playing that game. It was just so ridiculous and stupid and just amazingly fun. And so, like, I got it as part of a Humble, but, knowing what I know now, I would totally go back and buy that, $10 or however much it was for that game, because it was just fun. Like, so it's hard. It's hard to know.
Well, also Steam is starting to help out a little bit too. So say you buy a game, you're like, oh, I'm gonna get tons of fun out of it, and then you're like an hour into, you're like, well, this game sucks. Well, now Steam has a return policy, which makes it so much better. So you don't get stuck with a bunch of garbage games you paid $60 for, and you played 45 minutes of it, because there's no demos out there for anything. It's not ones to give you enough.
I wish demos would come back. I mean, I do miss demos. Like, they were really. I mean, I remember like in the mid 2000s, even on Xbox 360, especially, just demo after demo after demo, and it was fantastic. I mean, like getting to play even half an hour of a title before you get to buy it. It's fantastic. There was a bit of a to do about. I believe it was Prey offering console demos but no PC demos, and then using Steam refunds as an excuse which is just backwards. Yep. You get to buy the game to try it. So instead of just playing the demo, but yeah, I'm with you on Humble though, Forenci, because part of the reason why I ended up in this whole, not worrying about hours too much category is I play a lot of indie games, and if we're talking stuff like Little Nightmares, which I loved last month, it was phenomenal. I mean, it's 4 hours, like 3-4 hours, I think, for my first run through that game. It's $20. I mean, I know a lot of people weren't a fan of the game because it was super short. I thought it was a great experience and I loved every second of it, but like it's hard to for some people it can be a hard like value prop to be like, this game is $20 and I'm getting like 3 hours out of it. So
yeah, exactly. And Van, you play a lot of those types of games, like those smaller like indie games, and I know you'd mentioned kind of like it's hard sometimes like to play those games all the time, because you might pay $20 for a game and then you play it for like 5-10 hours, and it's hard to keep up with that. Like, do you think about that now that because you play a lot of those games?
As far as streaming, that's why I like to mix it up. So I'll play a couple of indie games and spend like $80 and get like a week's worth of streams out of it, and then it's like, okay, now we need to reel it back. Let's play something where we can get a lot of time into it before we can invest that kind of money into those games again. But playing those smaller indie games, the heavily based story games, and especially ones like Little Nightmares, where there's a lot that's up for interpretation for yourself. I'm a sucker for those kinds of games. Mm-hmm. Like, they're the best. they really are. I love those kind of games. So I don't know. I think it's interesting that you guys all said replayability though, because there are games like Grim Fandango, for example, or Ghost of Essell. It's a new one that's getting ready to be released. Mm-hmm. Oh, what's the other one? King's Quest, like my favorite game in the whole world. There's not a lot of replayability because after you solve the puzzles, like it's done, but it's worth it. The stories are too cute. They touch me in ways.
Yeah, I almost kind of see those games as like purchasing a movie. So you pay how much for a movie now, and then you watch it for your 2 hours, and then you're done with it. Because how many people go back and get their movies and watch them billions of times? So some of these games, that's what they're made. They have like the really awesome cinematics in it and like the really cool storyline. So it's like you're following somebody's like a character through a movie. So that's where I could see justifying some of the indie games like that, because you have the story, you're done. And then maybe in 6-8 months or a year, you go back and do it again. So then you may get your second playthrough of it and then never touch it again. And you've made all your money.
To me, it's a little bit better than just a movie, though, because you get to personalize it. You get to like insert yourself in the story and, sway the fate, sort of say. Like you get to become the main character. And that's way better to me than a movie.
Yeah, it's, an interactive movie. And I don't know. I like a lot of those games, like those kind of like small story games, and like I think one of the things I love the most is playing story games, but it's hard sometimes. It's hard to kind of jump into that and spend that money and then know in my head, and you kind of bring up a good point too, Van, where you said like thinking about it as a streamer is like totally different for me sometimes than thinking about it as just a regular average Joe. Like okay, if I buy this game, can I get like several streams out of it? And I hate to kind of think about it that way sometimes, because it kind of takes me away from like what I like to do sometimes. But at the same time, it is something to consider. It's nice to have those games you can kind of keep going back to the well, so to speak. And like, I could play Overwatch. I could fire that up right now, and I could keep playing that game, or PlayerUnknown's, which I've been playing a lot of. It's replayable. There's a lot of depth to it in some ways, and there's a lot of replayability to it. Kind of Shiny mentioned. So it's a balancing act. I don't know. It's definitely changed my perspective on games, and I don't know. And do you guys kind of like think, the Steam Summer Sale right here, like, do you buy games? Because I do this all the time, and I need to stop. Like, I see a game on sale, I'm like, this is like $5. Like, how could I not buy this game? I might play it at some point, and then I've got like 300 Steam games that have never been played probably. So
every time, Forenci.
Like, it kind of looks cool. Let's try it. No.
Yeah. This is the lowest sale it's ever going to be. It's 70% off, and I have to buy it because it's $5. And what if I want to try it later? I know it's every single summer sale. Every summer sale, half the humble bundles. I mean, it just because it's so easy. Like, that's one cup of coffee out. Okay, sure, I'll grab it. Why not? It's interesting. The other side of that for me, but I'll throw it out there. It's a question of like, does it devalue how much you're willing to spend on a game? I think there's been a lot of talk about this. Sort of the advent of Humble and the advent of Steam sales is people sort of think like, is a game only worth $5 or $3 or per 10 hours or whatever the calculus ends up being, right? Because I think that does affect my perception sometimes. I'm like, I could get this indie game now for $25, or I could wait and get it for 3 months down the line.
Yeah, I actually do that a lot too. It's like, I really want this game. And then you start watching, especially when they release, you're like, well, I'm going to watch it on Twitch. And then you're like, well, man, I don't know if I want to spend this for that. Yeah. And in 3 months, Humble's going to get a hold of it and put it in a giant bundle. And you're going to pay $15 for 19 games. And it's a value of $400. And you're like, oh, I'm going to play this one game. But I got it cheaper than what it would have costed with another million game. So I do that a lot. So that's where you get the giant list of games that never get played.
Yeah.
Good. I was like, and I think it does devalue games. Like you're saying, it does devalue the content because you're like, I can always get it cheaper later.
Honestly, I'm trying to think recently of a game that I've paid $60 for, like full value, just because I just wait now. I'm like, as long as it's on Steam, usually that's usually the thing. Like, Steam Summer Sale, or I'll get it at the Steam Winter Sale or whatever like that. I can wait. I can hold out. And so I think like that kind of like changes the value of the game too. Like I started assigning values. I know Shiny, I do this like all the time. Like, I'll buy that when it's like $10. Like that seems like what its value is. And I don't really know like how I come to be, I guess, just watching like other streamers and watching YouTube videos of it and just kind of like making my decision then. Like this is a $5 game at best, which I probably won't play at all anyways. But it's kind of, I don't know. It's just like I think Van, you're a math person. You need to come up with some kind of like formula that like determines
some kind
like
of algorithm.
Yeah, so it's like hours played with like fun factor. Like is this a game that I click buy on, and what price? So we need some kind of like formula or algorithm to kind of like help me.
I could try. The problem is that it would be like based off of a utility function, which is basically arbitrary and really personal to like the person. Like it's hard to measure utility. It's really an individual thing. The interesting thing that I wanted to ask you guys is, do you think that like summer Steam sales and the winter Steam sales, as well as like Humble Bundle, do you think that they help indie games get exposure where they otherwise wouldn't? Or do you think that they just like harm the process and make it so that make it harder for people that want to make these games to do it because they're like undercutting the price of the game, if that makes sense?
I mean, I guess it has a positive and negative to it, because indie games it's usually made by like one or two people, and they have they don't ever put a figure of how much it costs them to do it or what time it did for it. And then they put it on there for $30, $25, and yeah, it goes around the Steam Humble sale for $1, because most indie games do that. And so you're losing 99% of what you what your price tag was. But also after the sale, say you could have bought it for the dollar, but word of mouth could come around, all the reviews start going up, and then people start buying it. So maybe in the short it hurts you, but in the long run it could help you. You'd have to see the math behind it.
Yeah, I do think like that that's what I sort of was getting to a little bit with the idea of like devaluing a game is sort of for indie developers especially. I mean, these are people who are working with other jobs or monstrous hours to make these games, and for sure I think there's from what I understand a massive increase in overall sales for indie games based on Humble Bundle summer sales. I think that overall it's generally very positive, expands the audience to way beyond what it would be normally, gets it available to other types of audiences that the game wouldn't have seen otherwise. But I think the issue for me, at least for negatively, is that despite all these massive positives of access, it creates this idea that the smaller games are worth less. Like it's a short story game, like let's say To the Moon, might be a hugely impactful emotional experience for somebody, but it's just an indie game worth $3. So like it's less meaningful than a $60 full experience because of the price attached to it. So I think there's like a dynamic in there that's a little concerning, I guess, and that along with the idea that like they're all packageable. So like one game that you hear of from a Humble Bundle, you're not going to remember a month from now because it's just one of the 5 games you got.
Yeah, exactly. I do agree. I think Humble has done a lot for indie games. There's a game I was playing this morning called Shopkeep. Just kind of a weird, quirky little game. I would never, ever in a million years buy that. And so I think it does give a lot of good exposure for games. But, it can, kind of suffer from, the Humble Bundle syndrome, I guess, where there's so many games. Because usually a lot of times I'll buy like the beat the average or like the top one where you get like get like 10 games. And so it's like, sometimes it's easy to just put those in your Steam library and just never think about them. So I mean, there is that kind of factor too, as well, I think, where it gives exposure, but it also kind of, you're wrapped up in this big bundle. And so it's like, I buy most of my bundles just because it's like, ooh, I want that one game. So, I don't know.
And you get that one game and you're like, you install like the other 3 and you play them for like 2 or 3 minutes, maybe 30. And then you're like, I'm going to play the game I wanted now. And then you never touch them other games again.
Yep. There's such a feeling of like regret for me of just like I played Legend of Grimroth like one time and I loved it, but I got it on a Steam sale and I forgot about it because it was it was $5 and I was like so good. I played like 5 hours of it and then I just forgot it existed. So I don't know. It's a whole like having this many hundreds of games in your library. It's weird to pick what to go with.
Yeah, because I know when I was a kid, with my PS2 and my PS1, you didn't have hundreds of games.
Yep.
And that's talking about the demos and stuff before. I remember when Sony released the demo disc that would have like 15 demos of games on it.
Oh, yeah.
Favorite thing ever. I would replay game demos all the time because when you're a kid, you can't get those games.
Right,
it's like,
in the magazines too. Oh man!
Beg your parents to buy the one game off the demo. You're like, I'll play it. And they're like, why don't you just play the demo? And see, now you can't do that anymore. But now everybody we humble it and then we never play it. So you have hundreds of full games and you never play any of them. As before, you had 15 2-hour segments of a game and you played it forever.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of watering down everything. It's diluting it.
I mean, there's kind of like an oversaturation of games now. It's not kind of like it was before, where there was like when you got those 15 games on that one disc, you're like, oh my god, there's so much stuff here. I could do like so much. This is the one game my mom will buy me, so I better, one thing my mom will buy me, so I better take advantage. But yeah, just it's kind of interesting. Here's a question I've been kind of thinking about too, because one of the things, like when I'm talking about like the value of a game, is that I used to kind of like make my decision for value, and we talked about it a little bit, but I used to kind of like very, keenly look at like reviews, and usually that was like IGN or GameSpot back in the day. Like I would always like, all right, got an 8 on GameSpot. Okay, I'm good. I don't do that anymore. Like I don't even pay attention. And so I don't know, Van, did you like, how do you get like your content to like make a decision of whether or not you're buying a game, do you go to like those big sites anymore? Do you just pay attention to Steam reviews? Like, what do you do?
Steam reviews. I want to know what the people who actually played the game have to say about it. That's all I care about. Because companies and everything like that are going to hype up their product because they want to sell it. They want to make money, and that's I want to hear what the people who like I said who have actually played it to base my decision off of.
What about you, Essell? Is it what is your method? Is there, I know like
I have like a writing and journalism background, so like I do follow reviewers. I'm of the camp that I'm not a fan of like numerical reviews in a big way. It's because it becomes a debate of like, why is Pokemon Ruby Sapphire in 7.8 out of 10 too much water? This like what does the number mean, right? So for me, it's I think the best way to go about it these days, at least, is to find individuals, video, print, not print, but like digital typing text words, and sort of reviewers that your tastes might align with, that cover the same genres you might like. And for me, that'll gauge interest. So like if I hear, some reviewer that I trust saying good things about a game I haven't heard of, that'll get me to give it a closer look. That kind of thing.
What about you? Is it just Steam reviews, or do you pay? Is there like, just because I know like there's been a lot of like rise of YouTubers that like I can't remember like the names because I personally don't watch them, but like I think it was like angry is it Angry Like Joe or something like that, who's really popular for game reviews. So like how do you get decide if a game is good?
I mean, I always like to do the Steam reviews, but I'll go to the website where the manufacturer of the game. I like to go on there and see progress a lot of times, but 90% of the time I just go on Steam, because though you'll have a game come out and there'll be 10,000 reviews for it, and what I like to do in the reviews is I like to see how many hours they've played. So if you've got a guy that writes a review that's like, oh, this game is 100% amazing, blah 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 blah, and he's got 6 hours in the game, that is not a good judgment of it. But if there's a guy that's got 100 hours and he's going, it's a great game, then you could understand, like, this guy's put a lot of time in this, and he's really getting replayability. And that goes back to where I like to know replayability in it, because I look for multiplayer games for the replayability.
Yeah, I kind of agree. It is, and that's kind of the interesting about the Steam reviews too. It's kind of evolved. Like, I used to like pay attention to them, but I kind of look at them almost not, I wouldn't say religiously, but just like I'm very focused on if it doesn't have like at least like a mostly positive or whatever like that, I'm probably gonna think real hard about this. Or and then they did add like I think like the hours played, so it's always interesting to see reviews for a game, and it's like 10 hours played, and or it's a really it's a game where it's supposed to be like 100 hours played, and so you're kind of like, well. And so, I don't know. I like Steam reviews. Like Van said, I think, too, is, I want to know the people who are playing it, what do they think? And then there's also kind of like, I feel like the meta Steam review where it's like people are just trying to be funny. Like the 10 out of 10, would buy again. Like those types of reviews, too. So it's hard to navigate. Like, because it used to be easy. It was GameSpot or IGN or maybe some other game review website that was, really popular. And now it's just like I don't think there is like a set formula anymore for it.
Yeah, I was gonna throw that out there about Steam reviews. I think the meme, Steam reviews are hilarious. Like somebody, back when Payday 2 was taking a lot of flack last year and the year before, there's a lot of like 1,200 hour players saying worst game of all time, 0 out of 10, and making other jokes about it. And I think the hard part for me was just with that a question of navigation. Like, it's hard to tell for me at least on Steam sometimes, like, how do you even sift through pages of memes about a game to get to like a real review? For me, I think that's the hard part of like, how do I go from like the hilarious views that get the most upvotes, because they always get the most upvotes on Steam, versus the genuine, like, here's what I thought of the game, my experiences, plus and minuses, bugs, etc. So for me, at least with Steam reviews, I tend to look at the ratio of like, as like a temperature of like, if most people liked it, great. If there's like if there's mixed reviews or mostly disliked, maybe stay away, that kind of thing.
Yeah, when you get those mixed reviews, you're like, well, then I'll wait for it to go on sale. And that's where I buy all my mixed reviews games, is in the Steam Summer Sale. And then I never touch them.
Yeah, it is hard because there does seem to be like for like Steam reviews, like there's like, all right, you got the 3 or 4 like on the first page, you know, that are going to be the funny ones that are always like, you know, 10 out of 10 would play this or whatever. And then there's the guy that does like the plus, here's like the 20 point like pro con list. And then there's, you know, the guy that's just it's hard, and you don't know too. Like one of the things I've always struggled with is, you know, like I genuinely don't like fighter or, you know, racing games for the most part. There's some exceptions. And so if I review one of those games, probably regardless of how good it is, I'm probably going to, you know, devalue it. So it's hard when Steam, because they're faceless kind of just, you know, text-based reviews. It's like, how do I know? Like, what if this guy just hates RPGs? You know, is that a factor? You know, this big, nice pro-con list, maybe he just hates RPGs. I don't.
Yeah, and for me at least, that's where it goes back to, like, you know, finding individuals in the industry, journalists or content creators of some kind, who you can sort of like pin down what their tastes are like. To your point there about like, what if they want the genre? Like, if you know X person who you follow on YouTube doesn't like Japanese RPGs, like, you don't go to them for your JRPG reviews, that kind of thing. For me at least.
Yeah. Definitely. And like there is so many games like now, so it's hard to find like one source that reviews all the little indie games that you play. Or, you know, early access too is a thing that makes it a little bit harder to, like, how do you review or kind of judge a game based on early access? And gonna do it again, going back to Ark. Started out like this amazing game, like they had content updates every week. It was just like really cool information was coming out, like just tons of updates and cool things going on. And then, you know, took a right turn, and now I hate it. So it's hard, you know.
They money grabbed us.
Yeah, it's
scorched earth.
Yep. It always feels so bad. It happened to me the past couple of years with Payday 2 and Killing Floor 2. I'm just like,
yeah, because Forenci had a ton of fun with Payday 2. 600 hours in it, and I
then
loved it.
The keys and crates came out. I was like, great. Well, that was a good while it lasted, I guess.
Yeah, you get that a lot. Like people will, you know, and Payday 2 was a popular one. There was another one recently. I can't think of it. You know, Ark has been like that a lot recently, where it, you know, had really good reviews for a long time, and then just as soon as they did something that people didn't like, they just, you know, started trashing it. And I thought it was funny with Ark because, you know, they had Scorched Earth, which was like an expansion, so it was its own separate game in a way, and it got its own separate reviews. But everyone came back to, you know, the just standard Ark game, and then it was like, this game is garbage, like they're just money grabbing, you know, blah blah blah, like it ruins the community. And so it's kind of interesting that there is that kind of, you know, that comeback. Even like sometimes like even developers, the guy who made DayZ, the standalone, you know, he left it pretty early on, and he's making his own game now. And I see a lot of like kind of comments about the upcoming game, even though it has nothing to do with DayZ. It's like Stationeers, I think, which kind of looks cool, but people are already like trashing it like hardcore just because they like, oh, he ditched, you know, DayZ, you know, that game was awful. So it's hard.
I mean, yeah, once you hurt your community, they can ruin you. Your following for sure will ruin you if you leave a bad taste in their mouth.
Absolutely.
One quick thought on review stuff. Does anybody look at Metacritic?
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, you know what Metacritic?
Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah, I'm giving you a hard time.
So the reason I'm bringing this up is because there's been some talk in the past couple of years about Metacritic being increasingly important for publishers as a metric of how games perform. To the point where, from what I understand, there's practices where developers do and don't get bonuses for games based on Metascore. And Metascore is a fairly unweighted, just X number of publications and individual reviewers who put numerical scores in their games just put a Metacritic, and Metacritic spits out a score. So if you go on the website right now, they'll have scores for all the recent releases for games, and it just gets sort of scored. And this number is apparently more and more important as time goes on for publishers and even for hiring. If you have in a lot of high Metascore games, it can affect your chance of getting hired. That's like a weird dynamic, especially in the world of like review numbers.
Assigning a number seems like a really arbitrary way to do it, because a number offers no context as to why it got the score. It's really the words that need to be taken. I'm having a hard time. Like the number should be taken at face value. It should be like the substance behind the number that bases your opinion off of it.
Yeah, and for me, that it's like trying to write a number in a review in the first place is like really tough, and it's kind of a strange. I know it's there for the purposes of getting attention. Like if you have a number, it's easier to digest a review. If you go, hey, here's a number, you can see the number, you get a quick idea of like temperature. But like to your point about context, yeah, it's just like you don't. For me at least, I get nothing out of number reviews anymore.
Right. It would be exactly the same as if you just like gave it a color. Like this has a purple number or purple.
This is a blue game.
Right. Right.
This is a triangle game.
It's like, what the hell does that even mean?
I mean, that's a really good point. Like, how do you assign a number to it? And Trash Hermit in the chat, Twitch chat, kind of brings up too, like nostalgia too. Like that's kind of a factor too. Like talking about a game, especially over time, like a game that like, how do you measure nostalgia in a review? Like my favorite game all time, Star Wars: Knights of the Republic. Like it probably looks like total garbage today compared to like some games that are coming out, and it's very clunky, current day, compared to current date RPGs. And so, but to me, that's still like the best game ever, and I can still go back and play it because it has a great story. And so, I don't know, it's hard. It scares me like that you said that, Essell, that there's like publishers basing things on like a score from Metacritic, because some games like they may not make the most money or get the greatest reviews, or maybe they release a game that comes out and it's a little buggy and then they fix it. Is that too late to go back? Do reviewers go back and fix that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a very scary question, I think, also from the perspective of reviewers themselves. I don't want to go into details because there's much of drama around it, but there was a reviewer who gave a lower than average score to Zelda Breath of the Wild and got his website DDoSed and death threats and everything. You could over I think it was like a 7. Again, I don't want to go into it too much, but that kind of thing, because they brought down the Metascore like 1 point because everybody had given it 9s. So this sort of that dynamic of like the numbers, especially because games reviews have a history of the average game being a 7 or an 8. The large review sites have had a historical problem with score inflation, and the average game is a 7, where it should be like a 5, right? At least on a 10-point fold scale. So it's difficult to even gauge not only just what the number means in the first place, but like on whose scale are you operating? Like, is this a full 10-point scale, or is a 5 a horrible game? It's hard to tell.
That's true, because I mean, if I saw like a game that's got like a 5 Metacritic review, I'd be like, oh, this is probably awful. But in reality, that should be average. Like that's an average game.
Yeah, so it's tough.
So we should be doing like a 1 to 3 scale. 1 is terrible, 2 is okay, and 3 is like, yeah.
It's
very where do we get our scoring guide from?
Yeah, which makes it harder to do a Metascore, because like if you have reviewers on different scales, somebody who if somebody gives an 8 out is like a very solid score, but for somebody else it's like a 9.5, and that's the same review, like temperature wise, like that's the same exact review. Like how do you evaluate that?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember, it was a GameSpot review for when I think it was GTA 5 came out, and it was I thought it was it was just the funniest thing. Not it wasn't really funny, but it was very interesting. Like it was I think the reviewer gave it like a 9.5 instead of a 10 or something like that. And just like it was because it was the reviewer said because it was like a misogynist game. And I don't know. I think that's, I mean, looking at it, kind of holistically, I think that's a fair complaint. If you think it's just, misogynistic or, there's racism or something like that, I think that's a fair point to bring in when you're talking about a game. But I just remember like everyone just flipped out over it because it was like, oh, you should just, that's not has anything to do with the game or anything. Well, it kind of does in a way. So I don't know. It's just, it's scary.
I think review reception's tough because it's hard because people want different things out of the reviews. That's why I go back to the idea of like people finding people whose tastes and review styles they agree with. Because like if somebody wants, I think it's important to not be like, well, every review should be this, because like reviews are subjective, they're very personal. But like people who want a review to be like a blow by blow of statistics about the game, or like, this game is this, the game is functional, the game has these elements. This is a review, versus like people who like first person and sort of like experience based review styles. People who do like the sort of like the gonzo journalism of reviews. Those are very different audiences. So I think trying to make reviews all be like, oh, well, do you guys like this review when you should be reading this one? Like, it doesn't really work out. It's the hard part.
I know, guys. Do we have anything else? Anything we want to like? Final thoughts on valuing your games? Is there anything else they want to add in before we kind of close out our first podcast?
I think I'm good.
I think I'm there with you.
Anybody play anything good this week?
I've been playing just very mainstream games. It's very sad, but just Overwatch and PUBG. So
Yeah.
Been doing Fallout 4 DLC, Nuka World.
nice. Gotta get that cola.
One day I'll actually finish the goddamn game.
Do it.
I finally tried out Nier Automata this week. Super good. Super good. I want to play more of it, but it's weird. It's very, very Japan in a lot of design choices, but like it's really good.
Yeah, I've watched people play it. And I'm like, I want to buy it.
Wait for that Steam summer sale.
Wait for that Steam summer sale.
It starts off as a shmup, like Galaga style shmup, and then it turns into a third person action game, and it's a side scroller at times. It's bizarre, but it's awesome.
Definitely gonna have to check that out. I think we'll call it in the the books for our first podcast. I guess we'll just kind of we got to see some personalities here, so just take this time to shamelessly self promote yourself. We'll start with Van over here. Tell people where they can find you. What are you playing? What do you plan on playing? Just that fun stuff.
I'm Van. You can find me on twitch.tv/VanChovi. I'm playing the Nuka World DLC for Fallout 4 right now. I also do a lot of indie games, like we've talked about for the last 45 minutes. Let's see, what else am I doing? I'm working on a project for YouTube right now. It's really kind of all coming together. It's really exciting. So that's what you can look forward to with me.
So what about you? What have you been up to? What are you going to be up to? Where can they find you?
Find me over at twitch.tv/Essell_TV. So that's the channel name. And I play a lot of stuff. I play a lot of games in the Souls genre that is sort of emerging this past couple of years. Recently, I've been doing a lot of Darkest Dungeon, an indie game that's similar-ish to Dark Souls and Bloodborne in theming, but very different style. I'm variety, broadly speaking, so I do like to cover new stuff too. But I'll be on after this with Darkest Dungeon.
Shiny, what about you?
You can find me at Shinybuckles1_Twitch TV. Right now, I'm just doing a bunch of Players Unknown and some Overwatch, but I'm going to be starting some older games like your Metros and some BioShock and some of the Stalker series. And I also might be getting into some of the old Digimon games on PlayStation. You can see me do some of those.
Well, I can honestly say too, like I watch every one of you guys, and so it's like they're seriously awesome. Like there's fun personality, so it's definitely go check them out. I'm Forenci. You can check me out at twitch.tv/Forenci1 or youtube.com/Forenci. And so I play pretty much. I'm very ADD with my games. I play pretty much everything. So I'm going to play Overwatch after this. I think we're going to do some multiplayer.
We all are.
Yep. So I think Essell's going to do his. Are you doing Darkest Dungeon? You said.
I am indeed. Stygian this evening.
Definitely check him out. So it's been awesome, guys. Had a lot of fun, and hopefully we should be back hopefully next week for another podcast here. So stay tuned for that. Keep track of social media. One thing I will mention too, and I'm going to pop up the overlay here. We have some places where you can find us. Twitter. There's YouTube. We're going to be uploading this podcast hopefully onto YouTube. And we're also eventually we're going to start trading kind of like the hosting duties, I think, for a little while. That way people can be exposed to it and kind of get into the podcast a little bit. But eventually I think we are going to transition into our twitch.tv/option_10. So definitely go give that a follow if you'd like to see more of this. It was really fun. So appreciate you guys hanging out and chatting, and I look forward to doing it again next week.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It was fun. Thanks for coming by, guys.
See you guys. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.